As Abe said, I'm the VP of Customer Success at Matter-365, also a practicing lawyer. So today we're going to be focusing on OneDrive. So I'm going to take you through some general introductory points and then get into some more details about how OneDrive can actually be used as a full and complete document management system for your law firm. So Microsoft 365, or as it was formerly known, Office 365, and I'm going to apologize right now, I'm going to accidentally call it Office 365 likely throughout this presentation, is now in the cloud. As you may have been using old Office products, whether you're using Office 2013 or 2016, that had you tied to your desktop because it required a local installation of the products. And for the most part, it required an on-premise or on-device storage only. But now Microsoft 365 is now cloud-based. And what this gives you then is a cloud-based storage of documents through systems like OneDrive and SharePoint. But it also gives you online versions of the applications that you use most often, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Planner. So now with everyone working from the cloud, we can get everyone on the same page regardless of where they're working. So there's a lot of different applications that you get with your license for Microsoft 365. But as we said, this is part one of a series of webinars. And today we're focusing exclusively on OneDrive for document management and storage. And so we're going to be running through some different features and benefits. First, we'll talk about the security of the cloud storage. We're going to have a brief discussion on the difference between OneDrive and SharePoint. And we'll review the web interface for OneDrive. Talk about auto-saving and versioning, syncing to hard drive, get into the meat of how you can collaborate with people inside and outside your organization, and follow it up with a quick discussion of security settings. So because OneDrive is in the cloud, people often have questions about security. And the key to that is to know that your data is stored in the secure Microsoft Azure cloud servers. Your data is encrypted both at rest and in transit. And when you first sign up for your Microsoft Office account, you can actually choose the location of your data. So if you want to keep it all in Canada, you can. You want to keep it all in the US, you can. If you don't care, you don't have to pick. There's also some additional features you can get depending on what type of license you have for your Microsoft Office, but they have a ransomware detection and recovery feature called Azure Information Protection. If that's something that your firm is interested in, I recommend that you contact your internet service provider or your IT service provider to see if that comes with a license. And if not, you may want to upgrade to that. But the data is not just in the cloud. You can also synchronize all of your data to your hard drive if you choose. And the benefit for all of that is that you can work from any computer. Because you can access all of your documents through your OneDrive in your browser, there's no need to actually have your laptop computer with you everywhere you go. You can get onto anyone else's laptop, a business center, in an airport, although I wouldn't recommend the airport one. You can access it from any computer, and you can even open and modify and share all these documents with the online version of the Office app. So there doesn't need to be any local installation of Word in order to do the word processing that you need to do. But in addition to that, you can do almost everything you need to do from your mobile as well. Whether you're using a tablet or a phone, there's OneDrive, a mobile application, which again gives you full access to all the documents that you have stored in your OneDrive. And there's also mobile Office apps for Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Planner, so you can still create, edit, save, and share documents all from your phone or your tablet. So for law firm perspective, the most common use cases are obviously work from anywhere. You don't have to be in the office to access all your client or firm files. It also gives you a secure online backup of all of your data should anything happen to your local machine or your office. And there's also no need for uploading and downloading documents. For working with colleagues, you can stop emailing documents internally, reduce all that back and forth with revisions of documents with the V1, V2, V3, final, revised final, final, and you just share the links to the documents. We're getting at to later in the presentation. So everyone's working off the same version. You can also reduce your version control headaches, again, by sharing links to documents and everybody working in the same document. So you don't have to worry about, am I revising the latest version or not? And you can also collaborate effectively across all your Office applications by using those same sharing links to embed those documents in your planner, in your OneNote, or even in your calendar. You can also work fairly seamlessly with people outside your organization. As we mentioned, you can create a secure client-facing repository for file sharing. The same way that you share links to documents, you can actually share folders as well. And that allows you to actually create a space where you can share documents with your clients and they can share documents with you. And I'll show, as we get into in the demonstration, we'll show how you can actually manage permissions. So even if you are sending a document to a client, you can actually manage what they can do with that document, even if they're accessing it from your cloud. So a lot of people are a little bit confused as the difference between SharePoint and OneDrive. They think that SharePoint are for me files. And it's true that the default for OneDrive is for personal files. So it'll show you your My Files section, and those are files that are only accessible by you. But it can also, OneDrive can also be used as a means to access any shared documents or shared folders that you have. So in the SharePoint, where people say you create a document repository, and those are the we files that everyone is documents that are accessible by large groups of people, anybody who's a member of that SharePoint site, you can still use the OneDrive browser on the web to access those SharePoint sites as well. So while there is a difference between OneDrive and SharePoint in terms of who gets access, you can access all the documents using the OneDrive browser. So we're going to take you a quick tour on the web interface in a moment, but to access it, all you have to do is log into your office.com, use your Microsoft credentials, get logged in, and then click on the OneDrive application. This will give you easy access to the My Files section, your recent files, shared files, as well as shared libraries, whether those were created in SharePoint or Teams. Anything that's been shared with you will be accessible there. But it also gives you the ability to look into, get some filed and folder details. And we'll get to that right now. Hold on. Sorry, I somehow missed my browser. There we go. So again, we access office.com, you click on the OneDrive browser, and this is what it's going to show you. You have access to your My Files, your recent files, as well as shared files. So this will be where you'll look if any files were shared with you, by other people, or shared by you. But you also have access to all the shared libraries as well. So we'll go into one of these SharePoint libraries just to show you what it looks like. And again, it's going to give you the same OneDrive view you come to expect, but in your SharePoint sites. So if you wanted to see any of the details that I talked about, you click on the ellipses and click on details. It'll give you some details off to the side. It'll show you how many views, so how many times that document's open, who has access to it, and it also gives you some quick activity. So that's some additional information that you can get out of your OneDrive without actually opening the documents itself. The other great feature about OneDrive is that if you're opening documents from your OneDrive library, it has an autosave feature turned on. So you'll never lose any revisions to your file. I know there's that nightmare scenario where a lawyer's working late into the evening, working on a document 30 pages in, and all of a sudden the power goes out or their computer crashes and they lose everything that they're working on. That is never going to be an issue with OneDrive because it's constantly saving it as you're going. It's also, there's no upload or download necessary. So whenever you open a document from OneDrive, you just open it. So I'm going to show you in the web interface for Word, but the same would function in the desktop version. So you can see up top here, it's going to say saving. So if I want to make any changes, here, you can see that it's automatically saving those changes. When it's done, it's going to say saved. So I don't then have to worry about it when I'm finished making these changes to hit File, hit Save As, save it as a new version. All I have to do when I'm done is close it, and those changes have been made. And you can see here that it's going to mention, it'll show up eventually saying that we made those changes. But the other thing that we have in OneDrive is also version control. And this is important because you're giving people links to your documents. You want to be able to see what changes people are made, when they made them, and who made them. So when we're in your OneDrive, the same way that we click on these ellipses where it says shows action, You click here and hit version history. And what it's going to do, it's going to show you every time somebody's opened the document, made changes, and closed it, it's going to automatically save it as a new version. So it's going to tell you what version number we're on now, when the modified date was, and by whom. And you can go back to any of these old versions. You can actually open up the files, you can restore them, or you can delete them at your leisure. But you can access the version history from your OneDrive page. If you're actually in the document itself, you can click up here to where the document name is, and you can see the version history as well. And in the Word online version, it can actually show you the changes down on the side. So once this eventually loads, unfortunately, there's a lot of documents. Let me try this again. Find one that doesn't have as many versions on it. So again, you wait for it to load, click here, click on version history, and it's going to load all the changes up in the document, and you can see all the different versions. And if I actually click through into these versions, you can see it's actually going to do the red line revisions to show you what documents were, or what changes were made when, and what that other document looked like. And that can actually be very important for you to toggle through. And if you have synced your files to your hard drive, and you can see here in the File Explorer, we have all of the documents here. If you want to see your version history, again, do a right click on the document, and you're going to see up here the sort of OneDrive features. And I can also hit View Version History here. I actually opened in the wrong window, and you can see all the various versions. And again, any of those older versions, I can restore them, I can download them, or I can delete them. So there's multiple different ways of seeing the same thing in terms of version history. And we saw just a moment ago what it looks like on your File Explorer. So OneDrive, you can actually sync it to your hard drive. In order to do that, when you're in your OneDrive, if you, in the folder itself, there'll be this sync button. So once you're in the folder that you want to sync, you click the sync folder, and it'll actually get downloaded onto your local drive. And what that's going to look like is you'll see all your files there, but there's going to be a status icon next to it. And it's important to know the difference for these icons. If it's got a blue cloud, that means the file resides only in the cloud. So while the file is listed on your local File Explorer, if you double click it, it's actually only opening it it's downloading and opening it from the cloud. But if you're looking for files to stay on your computer permanently, there's ways you can do that. And I'll get to that in a moment. But the green check means the file resides in the cloud and temporarily on your PC. The full green check means the file resides in the cloud and permanently on your PC. The arrow means a file is syncing, and red X obviously means there's a problem. But when you're actually in your driver, you can see I've got these all linked. If you need to free up space, we can actually right click on the status, and you can see here it's always keep on this device. But if I want to just free up space, I can turn that off, and then all of a sudden all of these folders now are going to go back to just the cloud status. So if I click into any of these and check the properties, you're going to see that it's actually 0 bytes on my computer. So it's very important then, if you want to keep files off your computer, that you actually can do that. But if there's anything that you need to be working on, you can obviously do a right click, hit always keep on this device, and then it's always available for you. So what I think is one of the greatest features that OneDrive has is the built-in collaboration. And I've alluded to this throughout the presentation, but I'll get into it now. And what these collaboration tools allow you to do is to actually share links to the documents rather than emailing copies. And we all know that emailing copies of documents is not the most secure way of communicating. And we also know that if we're sharing the files through the links, that everyone is working on the same document. It allows for simultaneous editing, so you and your client or you and opposing counsel can be working on the document simultaneously and making changes, and you can actually see the changes that everyone else is making. And as I said before, we can also share folders as well, and this where you can actually upload documents or have your client upload documents as well. And in the corporate setting, you can actually even work as a virtual closing room, where you can actually put all your documents required for the folder from both sides into one folder to use from there. So there are multiple ways to share, but there is a common sharing dialogue regardless of what you're working in. So I'm going to show you quickly, or just describe it quickly from OneDrive web app. Again, right click on the ellipses will get you to a sharing dialog. Within the Word, Excel, or PowerPoint, you can also click share. You can do it from OneDrive desktop. And also in Outlook, there's a copy link to email. But before we get into those, I just want to explain quickly the sharing options. So there's 4 different sharing options, starting with the most permissive and then going to the most restrictive. Number 1 is anyone with the link. Because you can send this link to anybody and then they can then forward it to anybody else, we obviously do not want to recommend that anybody with the link is a system by which you share your documents. There is an option to set a password and an expiry of the link to give you a little bit of control, but we still recommend that you not use this. The second less restrictive or more restrictive option is just people just in your organization. So this will make it anybody who has the same email domain as you who has the link would be able to get access to the document. A little bit more restrictive than that is just people with existing access. So these are people who already have access to the document, whether it's in a particular folder that they're a member of, or sorry, SharePoint group that they're a member of, or they've already been given access previously. That's the only people. So it may be a subset of people within your organization. And then the last and the most restrictive, which we recommend to use if you can, is just specific people. And there is a multi-factor authentication that's part of that sharing. So I'm going to get to that now. So within the OneDrive app or web browser, to share, you can either click on the document and hit share up here, or right-click on the ellipses and hit share. And this is what the dialog is going to look like. And as we said, you can click on here. The default is set up, you can set, which we'll get to again later in the presentation, to people just within your organization or people with existing access or specific people. But even if you're emailing it out to specific people outside your organization, you have the ability to block their editing and even block their downloading of it. So once you get the settings right and how you want them to work, you hit apply. You can type their email in, and then type a message here as well. Now it gives you a warning that the person is outside your organization, which can actually be quite helpful. And then you can hit send. And now that's going to send an email out to the person, and they're going to click on it, which will then take them to a link where they have to then put in a code that gets emailed to them as well. So that's the multi-factor authentication. Another way that you can do it is from within the documents themselves. Let me just go back to this document. In the upper right-hand corner, you'll see the share button. And again, it's going to have the exact same sharing dialog that we just saw. Again, pick whichever one you want and then hit share. And then if you are from even on your local machine in your file explorer, you do a right click and you can hit share here as well. And again, it's that common dialog and you can send it to anybody you want. The one thing that you should note, however, is that if you share a document, you're also sharing the full version history. So if there, as we showed, you can see the version history within the document. You're going to be sharing that. If you share the document with somebody with editing capabilities, you're going to share the full version history. I'm going to show you. This is one of the documents from within that SharePoint site. I shared it with myself, so you can see I'm logged in as Rohit at Matter-265. But I'm not the author of this document, and the SharePoint site that it came from is not a Matter-365. But you can see that I can see the full version history, and I can open those other versions. So what we recommend that you do, that if you're in this situation, rather than just sharing this document so they can see everything, you can go back to you want to hit File and hit Save a Copy. And then you can save a copy into your documents and you can put whatever you want on here, coach's contract, final, and then save that. And then you can share that version with your client. Because then now, as I've saved it as a new version, I can go back, look at version history, and there's nothing there. So that's the thing that you need to be careful of when you're sharing documents. And again, just to reiterate the common use cases now that we've gone through the collaboration tools, work from anywhere. You don't have to be in your office. You can access all your firm files from any computer. When you're working with your colleagues, share links to documents to keep everyone on the same page and on the same document. Stop emailing. You're not going to have any loss of version control. You can be working on documents at the same time, which makes it much more productive. And you can even collaborate if you're using different Office applications, such as Planner or Teams. You can use that inserting links to actually share the documents more effectively. And again, working with people outside your organization, creating a secure client-facing repository for file sharing by sharing a folder instead of just a link, or sorry, instead of just a file. But you can also manage permissions for the client-facing documents and manage their editing capabilities if that's something that you want to keep track of. So the last thing that I want to get to is talking a bit about security. You know, we sort of, when you set up your sharing features, you can actually set default sharing settings, and I would recommend that you do that for your firm to sort of keep everybody on the same page, because you don't want your default to be too permissive, because then mistakes can be made. And I don't have to tell you guys that in the practice of law, mistakes can be very costly. There are other ways that you can also set for expiring access. So even if you give somebody access to a document, you can have that permission to access it expire after a certain amount of days. And again, we can manage access from the file details. So I'm going to show you quickly. When you're in your Microsoft Office, if you have the admin privileges, this is where you need to go to set these defaults. So you click on your admin tab. Hit show all, and go down to the bottom where it hits SharePoint. And from SharePoint, you want to hit policies and then hit sharing. It's a little bit complicated to get in here. We're going to provide you guys with a recording of this video at the end so you can go back and do it. But you can see here where the defaults are. The most permissive being anyone. So if you want to turn those off, you can actually reduce the levels here. But more importantly, this is where you want to sync. So the type of link that's selected by default. If you have specific people only, that makes it very the most restrictive possible. But we generally recommend that you set the default as only people in your organization. So that way, if a mistake is made, at least you know that it's only going to be made internally and not outside your firm. The last thing, again, when we're talking about file details, when we talked about it before, so when you're back in the OneDrive browser, you click on a file, you can hit details. And you can also manage access here as well. So when you click on the manage access button, it'll show you the links giving access and you show you who's been accessing them. I recommend you not change anything with the direct access because that's something that was likely set up from SharePoint as to membership to different groups. Or if you're a Matter-365 subscriber, we're managing that for you. So don't change any of those. But you can see under this link that somebody was copied and that Rohit Parekh is an external user. You can actually remove their access that way. So if for whatever reason you may have forgotten to turn off access, or if a deal is done, you can go in manually and change all of this to remove people's access. All right, so in conclusion, OneDrive/SharePoint can be the all-in-one document management solution that you need for your firm. It has all of the features you need for secure DMX sort of out of the box, or DMS or out of the box. And the only piece left, though, is how you want to organize all of those pieces. We think the best practice for law firms is to create SharePoint sites that will help organize your firm, and then you can manage access to their SharePoint sites more globally. And it depends on how you organize your firm, but the SharePoint sites can be created for each matter, or for each lawyer, or for each practice group, or however it makes sense to do it for your firm. So I'm happy to take any questions that you guys have, and we're also happy for you guys to stay in touch. So you can reach out to me about anything related to your Office 365 subscription, or we can tell you more about Matter 365 and how we help you in your organization of Office 365. And I can be reached at rohit@matter365.com or on Twitter at rohitparekh71.